Late Life is a production of Twin Cities Public Television in partnership with Allina Health, whose Life Course project, funded by the Robina Foundation, granted the producers unique access to their ongoing research into late life care in Minnesota.
This is my life.
By not being able to drive, I can't go see my friends or my family.
For 2 years after my wife died, I did not do anything. Then I decided I needed to reinvent myself.
The national conversation around healthcare addresses topics like health insurance and emergency room visits. But our fragmented system offers little in the way of practical solutions to everyday problems. Many of the chronically ill and frail elderly lack the kind of basic social support that can keep people out of the hospital. They need help with such activities as transportation, nutrition, and affordable housing.
Medicare doesn't pay for food. Medicare doesn't pay for heat. Medicare doesn't pay for transportation to see your doctor or to make it to what other appointments you might have.
And while we're blessed with perhaps the best medical technology in the world, our high-tech medicine sometimes fails to address the basic priorities, needs, and fears of the chronically ill.
Medicine's gotten very technical. We have clinical goals to meet, which have really been dramatic in improving the health of populations. But that and the barrier of enough time with patients starts to build a wall between this desire to be healers and this need to do the technical work in medicine.
We need a care system that emphasizes continuity, adherence to care plans, comfort, habilitation, being able to do what you still can do, rather than just sort of fixing a chemical in your blood.
And so medical culture is getting these pushes towards thinking about people more holistically, meeting them as individuals and addressing what matters to them.
The three individuals you're about to meet are all coping with both health issues and non-medical challenges. Each are having to navigate the difficult transitions and bumps in the road that define late life or chronic illness. Everything from keeping a roof overhead, to getting a ride to the grocery store, to finding purpose in life after losing your role as a caregiver or loving spouse.
These are pictures of my grandchildren.
Here's a wedding picture.
On January 26, 2013, Randy Sellers suffered a simultaneous heart attack and stroke. Randy's now living with congestive heart failure and moderate cognitive impairment. Before his health began to fail, Randy worked full-time as a special needs school bus driver. He now works 2 days a week delivering auto parts, but suffers from fatigue, shortness of breath, and moments of mental confusion.
I don't know if you can tell how sweaty I am and winded, but just goes to show you I can't take the heat anymore. Even an 80-some degree day with any exertion exhausts me.
But when do you see the hematologist? When's that going to...
October 18th.
Randy and his partner Dixie Schlack live here in Inver Grove Heights. Dixie has her own health issues. In addition to their medical problems, Randy and Dixie are living in poverty. Indeed, Randy sees his money problems as contributing to his 2013 health crisis.
I couldn't get my medication because they wouldn't refill the prescriptions without a doctor's visit and lab work, which I couldn't afford without insurance. So I went between the months of June and January without my meds that I needed.
And do you think not having access to the medication may have been part of you falling sick?
I firmly believe that it was a major contributing factor.
I've gone into the pharmacy and needed to pick up a prescription even for a $3 copay, and they're not willing to give it to you if you don't have the $3. and that could be your life-saving medication.
Juan K. Rubin is Randy's Life Course Care Guide, a non-medical professional trained to help patients and families navigate the complexities of the healthcare system.
When I first enrolled Randy, he was receiving medical assistance. He was receiving EBT, food support. He was in a tough financial spot when Life Course got involved. But it's still really hard for him, as he says, to eke a living out of $900 a month. Recently, they threatened to shut off their electricity, their energy. So Life Course was involved in reaching out to Dr. Broker, seeing if he can write a medical waiver.
Well, the less pills I take, the better.
And that's generally what. And so he was able to protect them for 21 days until they get to the cold weather rule.
So why did Randy have a stroke? Poverty, stress, living in an unheated trailer in Minnesota. There are increasing numbers of reports coming out now. For example, a couple of weeks ago, there was a study that said for every 1% increase in the amount of money spent on Meals on Wheels, delivering food to people who can't get it themselves, there is a huge decrease in the number of older people that end up in nursing homes. This is just a classic example of what I'm talking about.
Randy and Dixie made it through one of the harshest Minnesota winters in memory. They struck a deal with Xcel Energy and have been able to keep the heat and electricity on, but now there's a new challenge.
Turn it around, like that. See it, like that. Yeah!
Dixie's daughter Tanya and grandson Javon are now living with them in the trailer.
Tanya had moved to South Dakota with Javon, and being a new mom, she wasn't taking care of him properly and this type of thing, so she moved back to Minnesota.
Michelle Ness is executive director of PRISM, a faith-supported social service agency in Golden Valley, Minnesota. She sees Randy's current living situation as emblematic of larger trends.
As poverty in the suburbs grows, as poverty of folks who were once middle class are now the working poor, we hear about the college kids returning to their parents. They finish college and they can't find a job. There's no place to live. And many people that we hear from have a lot of medical bills. So for instance, we had a knock on the door one day, the side door here, and it's an elderly gentleman, 91 years old. Oh my gosh, he was so grateful to find us. He lives right here in Golden Valley, and he and his wife were hungry, very literally right then hungry. They had used all of their money for that month to pay their medical bills, and they came to our food shelf looking for food. Medical costs are huge, and how people choose to pay their bills and manage their money, of course, is a personal choice. But what we know is there are seniors who are heavily burdened with the cost of medical care and are even choosing to forfeit, literally, food.
What to get your other outfit out, Blue?
Dawn Blooding is 72 years old. She lives here in Farmington, Minnesota, with her companion and best friend, Sir Blue.
Okay, let's go.
Dawn moved to Farmington in 2010.
She told me at our first meeting that she had relocated here from Wyoming. When she became ill, she has a daughter living in Minnesota. Her daughter felt she would get better medical care in Minnesota.
Dawn has had 2 minor strokes and has atrial fibrillation, or an irregular heartbeat. Her current diagnosis is congestive heart failure. Her heart problems began shortly after she relocated to Farmington.
I didn't have a heart attack. I didn't have a stroke. My heart just stopped. I had some pretty shaky days there. I was in ICU for 8 days. I had to have a pacemaker and a defibrillator put in.
Later, Dawn had a 6-hour surgery to address the atrial fibrillation, but within 5 months of the surgery, the problem was back.
My heartbeat wasn't right. They had to stop my heart and restart it or restart it. I said, I don't think so. I said, maybe it is my time. Oh, my doctor, he doesn't take no for an answer. He said, come on, you've been through everything. Go one more step with me. So I did, and I came through it okay.
For the chronically ill like Dawn and others, the transition from home to hospital and back again can be enormously stressful.
For that following year, I spent more time in the hospital than I did at home.
Transitions are a huge challenge, and there's recent evidence in the published literature that the rate of transitions increases towards the end of life, a time when people really do better with more stability, staying in one place.
Some people bounce back and forth from, say, nursing home to hospital or from home care to hospital every couple months for a couple years, and no one ever gets around to asking, well, what is it you really want here? So we never built a care system that was allowed to be sensitive to what it is that people most want out of their waning years.
With her declining health, Dawn has entered a new phase of life, a time of unwanted change, hard choices, and difficult transitions.
We talked a lot about that transition from moving from Wyoming to Minnesota, that was difficult to leave behind family and friends. And it was especially difficult for someone who's ill, because when you're ill and you're not really operating at a 100%, trying to make new friends, set up new connections is a difficult thing.
In leaving Wyoming, Dawn left behind a home, but also her identity as a homemaker and nurturing mother.
I married in Fort Collins, Colorado. We had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. We moved to Great Falls, Montana, where we had foster children. That was wonderful. Over the years, I've probably taken in, I think the last count was a little over 300.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wonderful though. These are 2 of my grandchildren. Cody's a football player. Taylor's my dancer.
It was a challenge raising her own children, with the foster children. Also, she married a second time after she divorced. And so she's close to her stepchildren as well as her own children. Dawn volunteered, I think, almost every day at a resale shop. That ended because the store closed. And so at the time I met her, that was a loss she was grieving, is that she no longer had that interaction every day. Also, she had had a loss of hearing. But what she felt with the loss of hearing, she could no longer drive.
By not being able to drive, I can't get to the store. I can't go see my friends or my family. I have to rely on when they have time to come and see me or come and get me. Their schedules are such that I see them very rarely.
Transportation is a huge issue. It probably comes up as the #1 need in any community. Most certainly you can put people on a bus, but some people can't go on a bus. And sometimes buses don't go near to where people live.
But at a time when transportation needs are expanding, many communities are struggling to keep pace with demand. The fate of the Prism Express program is one example among many.
Our Prism Express program provided bus transportation services to primarily seniors in the area. They would call ahead and say, I need a ride to get me to the grocery store, or maybe to get my hair done. The cost of running a program such as that can be quite significant. Gasoline, maintenance, staffing, administrative costs, it all adds up, and we simply don't have the reserves as a nonprofit. It didn't make sense and was not something that we would be able to sustain.
I can't drive to the store. I have to have someone pick up my groceries, or my daughter takes me when she can. Medicine. I've had to switch pharmacies and have it delivered. Thank heavens we have a pharmacy here in town that delivers.
The physical and emotional effects of isolation can be just devastating. And so this is where it gets a bit more complex, and it's not just, do you have a ride to the movie theater? This is about, are you able to maintain your quality of life and the integrity of yourself? And when you begin to rely on others, whether it's for transportation or food or money, whatever it might be, it's very life-changing.
Despite her challenges, Dawn remains resilient. She's making new friends and adapting to her new reality.
She has this group of friends. They play cards every afternoon.
There's my floor. There's your floor. This third floor is like a family. We have dinners at least once a month. We're all very close, taking care of each other.
Also in the building, Sir Blue has friends. So it's not just the human friends, they also have dog friends in the building.
Yeah. How are you feeling? Or are you happy that you did the surgery? Or...
Oh, absolutely. My arm is still numb and got the feeling, but I am starting to feel better.
Norm Nelson is a retired chemical engineer from Golden Valley, Minnesota. Norm has suffered from a long litany of ailments.
I sat there one night before the surgery and I thought, it just keeps adding on and adding on. And when is it just going to end?
Yeah.
He's had surgery to fix a painful pinched sciatic nerve, prostate surgery, and life-saving surgery to repair his aortic heart valve. He suffers from gout and type 2 diabetes. He's currently being treated for congestive heart failure. Despite his health problems, Norm remains upbeat and sanguine about this chapter of his life.
Right now I'm 76. I've reached basically my life expectancy, which is 76 point some years. I've had the love of my life. I've had a reasonable, successful career. I said, I don't need to live to be 100.
Oh, there she is.
There's
Look
our
at
wedding
you.
picture. Here's another picture of the two of us. August 31st, 1962.
Oh, I haven't seen that one before. That's beautiful.
The love of Norm's life was Boženka, his wife of 40 years.
My life changed very quick. It started with my first job out of college. 2 weeks later, I went on a blind date. And 3 months later, I married that blind date. She was my Czech Cinderella. She was born in New Prague, Minnesota. Her parents were from Czechoslovakia. And you talk about opposites. She was a classical concert pianist and piano teacher, and I was an engineer.
His wife, he calls his Czech Cinderella. I think of his home as just a shrine to his wife. When I first met him, he talked about the glass slippers that he gave her on every anniversary. You really just get the sense that this is a real deep love that was kind of meant to happen.
I think her true love was teaching kids how to play piano. We never had any kids, but in a way we had lots of kids, because she used to have me come down and have the kids play their pieces that they just learned for me. Over the years, she had a lot of different illnesses, and one of them was arthritis. And I said she had been a concert pianist, and I watched arthritis destroy her hands. The last 5 years of her life, she was so sick and so much pain. I called an ambulance 4 to 6 times a year for 5 years. And I retired early to keep her out of a nursing home.
He was her caregiver.
Boženka Nelson suffered a debilitating stroke and eventually died at home of congestive heart failure.
Norm says it's, the biggest decision of his life that he decided to not call 911. They had been calling 911. They had been doing interventions for her. So he had to make that decision. I think that weighs on him still to some degree.
She died on Memorial Day, 2002, a few hours after I gave her my permission to die, which is a very hard thing to do. So,
after his wife's death, Norm found himself paralyzed by grief and loss.
And then the way he's described it to me is that he just kind of laid on his couch and cried for 2 years. Didn't know what he was going to do next. Then, I don't know exactly how the change came about.
I really didn't do anything around this house. Then I decided I needed to reinvent myself because I said, this can't go on the way it is. So then I started doing a few things around the house, and then I started volunteering. So what is the length of one side?
Norm spends Monday mornings tutoring math to adults in Robbinsdale, Minnesota.
I'm now in my 10th year of tutoring, and I enjoy that very much. I've had students anywhere from 16 to 86.
No. Having someone like Norm allows us to provide pairs or small group instruction for students who, a lot of them felt really kind of disregarded by the system, or they felt that they never got a lot of individual attention, did not have their questions answered. And having someone like Norm, they can get their questions answered, move at their own pace, and kind of go on that educational journey together.
These are people that have dropped out of school and have come back to do it. And,
Norm rocks.
and that's my reward, is watching them graduate. I enjoy it.
On every Monday, I wait for Monday because I know Norm is going to be here. And I know that if any tutor, I'm what I want to help.
When he's not tutoring, Norm delivers Meals on Wheels to seniors in Crystal and Golden Valley.
They originally wanted 1 day a month, and I now deliver meals 4 days a month. Yeah, me again. Hi, Brian.
Thank you very much.
He's always enthusiastic. He is always willing to volunteer.
As Randy, Dawn, and Norm all struggle with congestive heart failure, each is coping in their own way with the losses brought on by the illness. But beyond their shared diagnosis, what truly unites them is a desire to live a full and purposeful life.
What are your biggest concerns or fears at this point?
My biggest fear or biggest concern is being useless. I was coming off a long period of unemployment, and I was just getting to the point where I was able to pay my bills, and then I got nailed like this.
He fears not being able to use his full mental faculties. He said that if I'm going to not know who I am or can't even spell my name, that's not what I call life.
I've always been there for my family. Took care of my mom, my sisters, my brothers. And now I find I have to rely on my children. I think that's one of the hardest things a mother has to do.
The idea that people at the end of life are recipients of care is a very limiting concept. If we really see them as whole persons, then we realize they still have something to give.
Volunteering put meaning back in my life. I miss my wife yet. She's coming the end of May. Will be 12 years since she passed away. But I'm enjoying my life.
You ready?
A lot of it is seeing the patient not as a bundle, a list of diagnoses or a list of problems to be solved, but as a fellow human being, and being genuinely interested in what matters to them and what's on their mind.
So how are you doing today?
Most of which is relationship with people that count. And making the most of whatever time is remaining, whether it's 10 years, 10 months, or 10 days.
Just the joy of waking up in the morning and seeing the sunshine. You find there's so much more to life than going to work, coming home, eating, going to bed. There's so much more out there. People, wonderful, wonderful people.
Late Life is a production of Twin Cities Public Television in partnership with Allina Health, whose Life Course project, funded by the Robina Foundation, granted the producers unique access to their ongoing research into late life care in Minnesota.